This is note taker 8 on mitosis versus meiosis. Mitosis is the way that our regular body cells reproduce so that we can grow or replace old cells. Meiosis is a type of cell division that allows our body to create our reproductive cells. All cells need to go through a life cycle called a cell cycle, and this cell cycle is represented by the picture below. There are 3 phases to the cell cycle: interphase, mitosis, and cytokinesis. Now, in the picture below, the green, purple, and blue all represent interphase. The last little triangle at the bottom that's split into 5 parts, the first 4 are mitosis, and then the last tiny little sliver is cytokinesis. So based on this picture, you will see that cells spend 90% of their time in interphase. So if we look at a liver cell, which takes about 22 hours to complete the cell cycle, it spends about 19.8 hours in interphase. Mitosis is going to describe the process by which your regular body cells divide. So with the process of mitosis, we're going to have one regular body cell divide into 2 new cells. They are going to be called daughter cells. And that process of mitosis is going to create 2 new nuclei. And each of these cells and these nuclei are going to be identical to each other. So whatever copy of DNA they have in one will be the exact duplicate of DNA in the other cell. This is why if you were to take samples of your skin cells from various parts of your body and look at your DNA pattern underneath, all of your cells would have DNA that match. Almost all of your body cells go through mitosis. Meiosis, on the other hand, is the process by which your sex cells are created. So if you're female, that would be egg. If you're male, that would be a sperm. However, your reproductive cells can only contain half the number of chromosomes as your regular body cells. The pictures below explain why. If you have a sperm with 23 chromosomes and it fertilizes an egg with 23 chromosomes, that gives us a fertilized egg cell with 46 chromosomes, and that cell will now start to divide to become you. As a human, you have 46 chromosomes in each of your body cells. It has to be that way. That's what the number is for humans. So if during meiosis the number of chromosomes doesn't cut in half, you would have 46 plus 46 equals 92, and then you wouldn't be human because humans don't have 92 chromosomes. Now, here in middle school, you have to know the process of mitosis, how this cell cycle works just for mitosis. When you get to high school, they'll go in depth and tell you all the different stages of meiosis and how the sex cells are created. But here and on these remaining slides, we're going to concentrate just on mitosis. So, with mitosis, just a reminder, we're going to create 2 new cells from 1. Each new cell is going to be called a daughter cell, and they are going to be identical to each other and the parent cell they started as. The human cell contains 46 chromosomes, but in each of these pictures on the remaining slides, I'm only going to show 4. In your notes, you have 6. I cut these numbers down so that it would be easier to see what's happening with the chromosomes. On each of the remaining slides, you will have a description of the phase, And then down below at the bottom of the slide, you're going to see 3 pictures. The first picture on the left will always be a hand-drawn picture of what the cell would look like. The pictures on the right, the top is a picture of an animal cell, and the bottom is a picture of a plant cell. Both of those underneath the microscope. And as we go through the phases, you'll see that what these cells look like under the microscope when they're at each of these parts of the cell cycle. So we're going to start today with interphase. Remember that cells spend 90% of their cell cycle in interphase. This is going to be a resting period between cell division. If you think of intermission during a Broadway show or during a movie, or even halftime, which is the intermission of a football game, this is the time for the actors on stage or the football players to take a rest and build up more energy for the next half. During interphase, this is the time for cells to build up more energy so that they can go through another cell division. So during this stage, the cells are primarily just resting. However, there is something very important going on inside the nucleus. Each strand of DNA that is inside of the nucleus is now unzipping and is going to replicate. Replicate means to make a duplicate copy, so they're going to make identical copies. So whereas you had 46 chromosomes, you're now going to have more than that hanging around inside your nucleus. We're going to need all those chromosomes to make the 2 new identical cells. The first true stage of mitosis is called prophase. During prophase, there are 3 important things that are happening within the cell. You do have to know all 3 things. So I'm going to reference the hand-drawn picture below on the left as I talk about each of these things. If you compare the picture on the last slide during interphase to this one, you will notice that the nucleus looks much different. Before, all of it looked like a big tangled mess of orange and red and purple and blue inside the nucleus. Now, the chromosomes, this is the first thing that's happening during prophase, the chromosomes have now condensed to make these X shapes. So each half of this chromosome is called a chromatid. So a chromatid plus a chromatid make a chromosome. This is the first thing that happens in prophase. Second thing that's happened, you'll notice that the 2 brown dots, there are 2 sets of them outside of the nucleus, they have actually moved apart from each other, and they've made these spindles made of fibers to join them. So it almost looks like there are little strings coming out of them. The third thing that's happening in the cell during prophase is that the nuclear membrane is going to start to disappear. As we continue on with mitosis, the chromosomes are going to need to spread out a little bit to have some room. So to do that, the nuclear membrane has to disappear. The next 2 stages of mitosis are prometaphase and metaphase, and they're usually represented together in the same picture. If you look below at the hand-drawn picture, during prometaphase, the centrioles have now reached opposite ends of the cells, and they have these spindles, these fibers that are moving towards the center, and they're going to attach to each half of the chromosome. During metaphase, the chromosomes are lining up at the metaphase plate, which is the middle of the cell. So if you can remember M for metaphase, M for middle, because that's where they're lining up. Right after the chromosomes line up at the center, they're going to start to play a game of tug of war. As the game of tug of war gets stronger, we move into the stage called anaphase. You'll notice in the picture below that the cell has kind of elongated and the chromosomes have now pulled apart into their chromatids. So you'll notice that the orange X, which was a chromosome, is now separated into two V shapes, each half of the X. These are chromatids. The purple, red, and blue chromosomes have also done this same thing. These spindle fibers are going to pull these chromatids away from each other to the opposite ends of the cell. So if you can remember, A for anaphase, A for away. In telophase, we have now reached the final step of mitosis. The chromatids are now on opposite ends of the cell, and new nuclear membranes are forming around them. You will notice that in this picture here, each new nuclei that has been formed is identical to the other one. Each one now has an orange, a purple, a red, and a blue chromosome inside of it. However, one thing you should notice about the picture below is that even though we have two new nuclei, we still only have one cell. At this point, mitosis is complete. However, now we have to have the rest of the cell divide. As I said on the previous slide, mitosis, which is only the division of the nucleus, is now complete. The rest of the cell is going to divide by a process known as cytokinesis. This is when the cytoplasm and all of the other organelles in the cell are going to divide into two. Half is going to go to one side, half is going to go to the other, and the cell membrane is going to finish pinching off in the middle so that we have two new identical cells. These two cells are called daughter cells. Now, in your note taker, if you look at the two daughter cells and compare them back to the picture of the cell by interphase, you will notice that both of them look identical to that first cell. However, they're just a little smaller. This process that was just described is mitosis cell division. This is when your body cells go through, divide to make more body cells that are identical to each other.